welcome to How to Grow a Garden. I'm back. I know I've been gone for a while. Today I want to talk to you about growing orchids. Aren't these cool? Look at this beautiful pot I put it in, and aren't these just beautiful? Oh, I love them. Okay, so here in northern Germany, and here in Europe, orchids are extremely popular. Everybody has them. You can buy them just about anywhere. Now, I know back at home in North America, they're quite pricey, and they're like a luxury plant. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to care for your orchids. There are a few things you want to know. First of all, when you buy your first orchid, or when you bring it home, or if somebody gives it to you as a gift. Now, I've got it in this little pot. The pot's been on the balcony here for 7 or 8 years now, and it's totally falling apart. That's not important. Just that if I'm, got bits all over me, that's why. So what you want to do, if you have an orchid that is blooming, see how this is in bloom, and it looks beautiful. Let me just give you guys a close-up on some of these because they're so pretty. So I bought it because I wanted to bring it home and I wanted to paint it specifically as a botanical art tutorial for my art channel, Learn to Paint with Scarlett. The link is below or over on the side. And by all means, please come join me there if you guys also like to paint. So I want to do watercolor with these orchids. But what I need to consider is it's brand new and it is flowering. That's the first thing. It is already flowering. So what I first want to do is nothing. I know that sounds really weird, but it's true. Nothing. I don't want to do anything at all. I want to just take, and if my camera's in the wrong spot. Hold on. Okay, so what I did is down here, it originally comes in this plastic container, and the little orchid roots are popping out the bottom, and there it is. So I have a container pretty much for looks, because you don't want to put that on the counter. That's not so pretty. So you want to put this into a little container so that it's pretty and just the way you want it to be. If it's a gift and it already has a beautiful container, leave it the way it is. The point is, don't repot your orchid until after it has finished flowering. Now these flowers, the flowers should last 1 to 2 weeks. I have had flowers, however, here. A few years ago I had some orchids and the flowers lasted like all summer. Now it may be that I didn't pay attention. I'm really behind these, aren't I? Okay, it may be that I didn't really pay attention and the orchids actually lasted only 1 or 2 weeks per flower, but there were so many flowers that it felt like it bloomed all summer, maybe like 6 months or something. It was crazy. That was one of these really big ones where the orchid has multiple branches and it's amazing. Highly recommend them. Gorgeous, gorgeous plants. But the first thing you want to do is nothing. Don't repot, don't take it out, don't disturb the roots. The problem is if you disturb the roots on your brand new beautiful orchid that's currently in flower, it'll drop the flowers. Poof! They'll be gone, and then you'll have to wait. And you could wait a long time before it comes out with new flowers. Now, when it has dropped its flowers, and you're now growing them, so you've just, when it's dropped the flowers and you've just got these long stems with nothing on them, right? That's when you want to repot it up into a nice little container. This is a bowl that I bought many, many years ago. It's a set. I have a few of them. So they kind of look like bonsai pots because they're really shallow. That's what you want to look for when you're going to pot up an orchid. You want a container that's super, super shallow. I have another one up there that I have my devil's ivy in, which I'm going to talk to you guys about in an upcoming episode. We're going to do a few things on indoor garden because it's raining here. It's been raining like all of May, all of April, all of May, all of June. It's even raining today. It's just constantly raining. So although my garden is doing really well and it's definitely, I'm going crazy because of the rain, I can't get there and film it for you guys because it's too cold and windy and rainy. So anyway, so I'm sure I'll come back to that eventually. But for the foreseeable future, for the next few weeks, we're going to talk about indoor flowers. So when you have an orchid that is done blooming, then you can put it into a pot, like I said, a shallow one, like a bonsai tree. Bonsai pot would be perfect. Now what I like to do is shake them out. So I just have the roots, place them where I want because I've got 3 in 1, and I think it's much prettier when you really bunch them up because it's just a better display, right? So I shake them off, and what's down here are little wood chips. Now, these could be redwood chips. I don't agree with the redwood concept because I think those trees shouldn't be cut down. But maybe, I mean, they shouldn't be cut down. And if they are cut down, that redwood, those redwood branches should really just be left to decompose and become part of the ecosystem in that area. But often you'll find redwood as the option. You'll also find fir tree bark as an option. Some people use peat. Also, I'm totally against peat, but there are different options like that. Now, you can use potting soil, but then you want to use a lot of perlite or vermiculite mixed in so that it's really airy. The point is these plants actually in the wild grow on trees. I know, that sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? But they do. They grow on trees. They do not grow in the ground. Now, let me just clarify. There is a place not too far from my mother in the Ottawa Valley-ish area, and they have wild orchids, and they are growing in the ground. In fact, it's extremely swampy there. So those are specific orchids. But the orchids I'm talking about now, okay, let me back up just a little bit. There are 100,000 registered hybrid orchids currently in the world today. Like, that's crazy. And there are 30,000 different type of orchids that grow in the wild that we know of, because we haven't found all of everything, right? So there's probably more. So that being said, typically the orchids that you will find in your grocery store or in your local garden center that are being sold, those are the types of orchids that in their natural and wild state, in their wild environment, would have grown on trees. If you've gone to Florida or Miami or definitely Miami. If you're on the promenade, you'll see that they've got orchids in the trees. They're awesome, but they're just orchids in the trees. Sometimes they have a little bit of moss around them to keep them a little damp, but they don't have to. So what these naturally do is they will stick onto a tree. It's like a symbiotic relationship, right? They'll stick onto a tree and they'll kind of grow the same way an ivy would, and they'll attach themselves and then they'll bloom. And they'll use the bark on the outside of the tree the bark obviously absorbs the rain, and then these guys will just suck up what they need as they need it. So the whole point here is that they really like air. They really like movement of air. They really like, you know, and if they don't have that movement of air, they are very susceptible to aphids and to mold. So you don't want, this brings us to water, you don't want to overwater your orchids. In fact, if you feel like you need to water your orchids, you probably don't. My orchids right now, they're quite damp, but that is because I watered them yesterday. What you want to do between watering of your orchids is let them completely dry out. So, and this may be counterintuitive to a lot of you because, of course, as gardeners, we think, well, plants need water. This is true, plants need water, but orchids need very little water. They need a lot of water at once and then long periods with no water, where I would consider it to be very little water. They do need to be misted. So if you're sitting there going, hold on, what about the whole misting thing, you know, on the movies, like on the movie Secretary, and he's like misting his orchids every day. Yes, they do want to be misted, most certainly. Now, the reason why orchids want to be misted is because in their natural environment, that is how they would have gotten their water. They would have captured the mist as it came in, or the clouds, you know, as it rolled in off the ocean in tropical places where they're found, and it would suck up the moisture. That's what they like. So if you don't want to water them, you can mist them, or you can water them. I personally think it's nice to mist your orchids because it's kind of romantic and fun and it's exciting, you know, it has that, it's very zen. It's not exciting at all, it's very zen, it's very relaxing to mist your orchids. Now, if you're busy and you're not, like me, a stay-at-home artist or stay-at-the-studio artist, slash gardener who has all the time in the world to mist my orchids and paint them, then you probably don't want to be misting your orchids every single day. Now, the way you can get around this is they like humidity. You can turn the humidity up in your house if that's an option, or you can put a bowl of water next to your orchids, or sometimes you can put the bowl of water directly under the orchids and actually make it a decorative thing. So if you've got a shallow bowl with some rocks and then you put this on top, or if you want to go really crazy, like really into it, and put maybe a little orchid dish, like a large, I mean, in my head, I can see this as being really pretty, you know, a nice terracotta, like a plate, like the plate you'd find at the bottom of the terracotta pots. What are they called? Trays trays, plates, terracotta tray. Okay, say that. So let's say a nice terracotta tray with some stones, little pebbles in there and some water floating in that, and then you've got your orchids sitting on top. And even though the orchids are in their own little containers and their roots aren't actually touching, that water floating in that plate will naturally, you know, evaporate, and in that sense it'll make this area a little more humid. So that's what they want. They want humidity, but they don't want too much water. They enjoy dry roots, humid environment, right? Okay. Okay, so other things to tell you about your orchids. Food, fertilizer. Orchids enjoy fertilizer. Now, I do not make my own fertilizer for my orchids. I'm also really not into fertilizing my orchids. They're extremely, I wouldn't say cheap here, but you know, they're like $7 to $14 a plant, so it's not super expensive. That being said, and I've had many plants, they do survive a long time without feeding. I'm not sure I've ever really fed my orchids, to tell you the truth. I don't think I've ever done that. But they do flower. I've had them flower up to 6 months where the plant just keeps going. I cut back the stem and when it's all done, and then I allow it to grow again. So then I'll, you know, let it go into the dormant kind of winter state for a few months, and then in spring, or depending on the temperature of your house and how much humidity you have, it will come back. When you do feed your plants, let's talk about feeding, you want to feed them when they're flowering. This is theoretically important. If you're the type of person who wants to feed your plants, then you can do that. If you want to feed them up to maybe once a week, or even once every 2 weeks, so bi-weekly, and it's a very light, very small amount of food that they need, but just enough to keep those flowers going. Once they've dropped the flowers, you don't have to feed anymore, so when they're dormant, don't worry about it. Like I said, cut the stems back, these guys all the way back to the bottom, and allow the plant to grow new stems is a good option. You can also leave these. I have done both. It is possible that the orchid will grow new flowers, where the plant will have new blooms from the old stem. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen sometimes. So if you feel like leaving the stems, maybe you don't like the way they look and you want to cut them off, or maybe you don't mind the way they look and you want to leave them. Either is fine. What I like to do is have plants that I know are young and are going to have flowers, and I mix them with the old ones. So I'll take maybe this brand new one, and even though I did say don't repot it when it's blooming, yeah, no, I do like to break my own rules. I will quickly repot this without doing too much disturbing of the roots and without watering it. That's key. I don't want to water it. I just want to leave it the way it is, but I'll repot it into a pot that has just the leaves, just the plants of an old orchid. So then I have 2 or 3 old orchids mixed with 1 or 2 new orchids, and it kind of gives it more volume, it gives it more foliage, it looks really pretty, and then I have that continuous life cycle thing going. So I don't end up with a single plant all by itself with nothing. Now, something else to note, if your orchid is dormant, it's not doing anything, it hasn't done anything in a long time, and you are in the right temperature, so it's a nice room temperature, it's away from draft, it doesn't like to be burned by the summer sun or by the noon sun, so something like an east window is best. If you are misting it daily and watering it, say 2 or 3 times a month, and by that I mean the soil is completely dry between waterings, if you feed it while it has flowers, and now it's just dormant and nothing's happening, okay? So the temperature's right, the lighting's right, the watering's right, and nothing's happening, and it's going on for a long time. Here is the best key, is to repot. So take them out, give them a good shake, get all the old bits and pieces off, take those bits and pieces. You can mix new pieces into it. You don't actually have to throw that out. In fact, in the gardening world, you never really need to throw anything out, right? You can put it in your compost, you can give it to your worms, you can mix them in with other plants, or you can just add them back in. The point is, you've disrupted the roots. So you want to go in there and shake them up and open those roots up. So what is that called? Root bound. You want to get that root bound, because you'll find, like I can tell you in this plant, that it is really root bound. Here in the bottom, we can kind of see how it's going round and round and round. And if I was to take this out and show you, I would make a huge mess, so I won't do that. Sorry. But these guys will also become root bound. So if you take them out and release those roots so that they have more room to move, and then repot them up using the same wood chips or whatever it is that was in there, there's a few things. I recommend looking it up online and figuring out what you want to do. Also, what it comes with is okay. What you don't want is too much moss or too much soil or anything that's going to be too absorbent of water, that's going to hold too much water, because that is going to promote mold. And the last thing you want is mold on your beautiful orchids, especially if you're in North America where orchids are extremely expensive. Some places they even charge you per bloom. Can you imagine? I mean, if you live in North America, you can probably imagine. It's nuts. Over here, totally different. Awesome. So you want to repot that by moving them, by shaking them, by getting them a little active, by giving them some fresh air and getting them to move around. They're going to wake up. Essentially, that's what you're doing. You're waking up your tree. Now, in the wild, this might be similar to an animal scurrying up the side of the tree and kind of shaking some of the roots loose. Maybe the roots, I mean, I'm making this up. This is my own hypothetical theory here, but maybe the roots are like, oh, I'm no longer attached to my tree. I'm going to attach myself, and I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to start flowering again. Who knows? But that's a really good tip that does work. Anything else I can think about? No, I don't think so. We have covered watering. We have covered fertilizing. Check out your local garden shop, your local garden nursery, for tips on how to fertilize. They will have all kinds of options. They will also be able to tell you what kind of orchid. If you take a photo, they'll tell you which orchid you have and then the best food for it. Definitely go organic. Avoid all those non-organic things. There are some seriously huge companies that we want to avoid. You know, the ones that like to do the whole GMO thing. Yeah, don't go with that. Avoid pesticides, obviously. Please, let's not do that either. Try to eat more organically. It's always good. And I am painting this, and I have 2 other channels, Healthy Living with Scarlett, which you can find over in the description. On my main channel page, actually, it's down the bottom. It tells you, it says other channels, I think, and I have it listed there. I also have an art channel, Learn to Paint with Scarlett, where I paint regularly. That is going really, really well, especially this year because there's so much rain outside that I'm inside anyway, so it's perfect. I am a botanical artist, botanical watercolor artist, so painting something like this is, you know, this is exactly what I love to do. And so now I have decided to take some time to teach you guys and show you guys what I do and how I do it. So I invite you to come join me on my art channel if you're interested in art. And that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Scarlett. This was How to Grow a Garden, how to take care of and grow your beautiful orchids. Let me bring it down here so you guys can maybe see it a little better. Aren't these just the coolest things? And this beautiful pot, I just love it. I have another one of these. I'm gonna go get some more orchids, I think, and fill another pot. You can use anything, any pot that you like that you think is pretty. Maybe put a few stones in the bottom so that the plants are a little higher, but make sure it's shallow. They only like shallow plants. Like I said, thanks for watching. Toodaloo. Oh, put your comments below. I love comments. Love it, love it. Let me know what you're doing, what you're up to. Let's have the discussion thing. Asking me questions is good. I'll try to get back to you on that too. But I always really enjoy the chit chat. And I have been doing this for a while. I recognize your names. I do know who you are, especially if you put your name on it. People like Chuck, who always signs his name. I appreciate that. Yes, give me comments, sign it with a name so I can, you know, and discussions are great. So tell me how your gardens are going and what you like to grow and whatever you want to talk about. Toodaloo.